Everyone. My name is Yi-kuang Chen. It's actually my first time in Poznan, even though I lived in Poland for 2.5 years. So I want to thank the organizer for the opportunity. And today my presentation will be a lot more about Europe and about what happened in the past 10 years and what's coming in the next 10 years. First, this is the emission from the power sector in Europe since 2019. Power sector has been the biggest driver for Europe to reduce its own emission. Especially, we see a sharp decline in 2022. The main drivers are, of course, coal to gas switch, expansion of renewables, energy efficiency improvement, but also COVID. And the different colors represent different emissions from different countries. And you notice that countries have different starting points. And also, some countries are faster in reducing emissions, some are slower. But it's because there are resources, history, and also politics. But going forward, we expect that it's going to be more and more difficult to reduce emission, even in the power sector. And this is not just for some countries. All countries, even though they start at different points, there will be some shared challenges going forward. And so today, I'm work as a manager at THEMA Consulting. So the reason why I lived in Poland for 2.5 years was when I did my master program. And then I moved to Norway to finish my PhD. And now I work as a manager in THEMA Consulting. So we work exclusively in the energy sector. We work with government, utilities, and financial institutes. And there I work the most in the power market analysis part. There we use a THEMA model, which simulates European power market. So the challenges I'm going to present, a lot of them is going to be from the power market point of view. First, I would like to talk about wind and solar. So in the past 20 years, Europe has built a lot of onshore wind. And we expect there's going to be around 250 gigawatt of onshore wind in Europe this year. And this amount, if you see one onshore wind turbine is around 2 to 3 megawatts, this is going to be around 20 to 120,000 of onshore wind turbines, which is a lot. And looking at solar PV, we also see, we see even bigger growth in PV. For the past 3 years, every year there are more than 20% of PV adding to the European power system. And Germany is the leading country in both these two technologies. But for onshore wind, here I want to use the example of Norway. In Norway, onshore wind now is not very popular. And if you look at what happened in 10 years ago, it's quite a big change. So Norway is a very hydropower-rich country. It has a lot of beautiful nature and relatively low power price. In 2012, Norway and Sweden started a joint electricity green certificate trading scheme. So that kind of prompted a lot of wind investment in these two countries. So you see rapid increase in onshore wind since 2014 to 2022. But with more and more wind coming in Norway, people start to notice them. Like when they go hiking, they notice, oh, there's a wind turbine far in the future, far in the horizon. And people start to feel like, okay, this is not really what we want to see in our nature. And on top of it, they also see oppositions from the native people, the Sami people. There's some land conflicts between onshore wind turbines and land use of the Sami people. So in 2019, the Norwegian Parliament issued an announcement or effectively banning any licensing of onshore wind in Norway. And this lasts for three years. And during this time, the focus has started to move to offshore wind. So in the same year when they banned onshore wind, they opened 2 offshore wind areas. And in 2022, so 3 years later, the Energy Ministry announced a very, very ambitious target of 30 gigawatt of offshore wind. But then another 2 years passed, they finally conclude the first auction, which was, I think, 3 gigawatt of first offshore wind. And there's still no offshore wind being built yet. So the consequence of opposition towards onshore wind and then shifting focus to offshore wind, that kind of slowed down the whole wind expansion process. Another issue about offshore wind is that it is a lot more expensive than onshore wind. So on the chart to the right, I'm showing the projection of the levelized cost of wind across Europe. The blue band is the cost range for onshore wind for different locations in Europe, and the other 2 lines are offshore wind cost for kind of the location with a good resource. So today, offshore wind, the best offshore wind you find in Europe is still double the price of onshore wind. And we do expect that cost will go down going forward with learning effect. And but to switch the focus today from onshore wind to offshore wind, it would mean a more expensive energy transition. Now, looking at PV, so here I want to use Germany as an example. So Germany so far has built 100 gigawatt of PV, and this accounts in a year over 20% of electricity is from the solar PV. And it's targeting 215 gigawatt of PV by 2030. The problem with PV is that when the PV generates, all the PV generates at the same time. So on the right, this is the PV monthly capture rates in Germany. So capture rates, you can see of it as market value of PV. The lines from darker to light, the lighter the light is, the closer it is to our current year. There's a very obvious drop during the summer month of the capture rate of the market value for PV in Germany. And this year in June, the capture rate was as low as around 30 or 31% in Germany. So it's not a very good business for PV investors. And when we think about like how to solve or how to increase the market value of renewables, the first thing or one of the first things we think about is flexibility. So flexibility has become a very valuable resource in the energy system. And so here I'm illustrating again the impact of PV in the power market. So these 4 charts shows the same thing for different countries. Here we count the number of hours when the price was less than €0. And we count it throughout the day and plot for each year from 2019 to 2024. So what you see, the peak in the middle of the chart, that means a lot of the price with zero and negative, a lot of hours with zero negative prices happens during midday, and also the closer it is, the more hours like this it is. And these hours are exactly when the PV is generating, which is the main driver for these low price hours. And it's not just in Germany, it's also in many other European markets. Last year, Germany had like 400 or 500 hours with low and negative prices. And going forward, we expect there will be more and more both renewables or solars coming into the European energy system. So we expect that there will be more hours with zero negative prices in Europe. And then, yeah, again, battery might be a solution. So here we did a set of simulations where we increased the number of amount of batteries in the system. So going from a low battery scenario, which is the one to the very left, and then we gradually increase the amount of batteries in the system. So the one to the very right, that is the system with the most battery. So for 2030, we see that solar PV is the main, it benefits the most from having more batteries in the system. So it all looks fine, like as long as we have batteries together with PV, it should be okay. But the problem is that for batteries, the more batteries you have in a system, the less attractive its business case is. So to the right, this chart is a comparison of the cost and revenue for a 2-hour battery for the same set of simulations. So battery, here we count the revenue from the day-ahead market and also intraday market. And in a low battery simulation, its revenue can cover its cost. But when you have more and more batteries in the system, the price volatility becomes less. That means it has less opportunities to bring revenues. So in other words, it's very good for solar PV or renewables, but the more batteries you have, the less attractive it is going to be. And the next thing I want to talk about is hydrogen, which is also another solution for flexibility and also quite often bring up as a key solution for decarbonization or energy transition. But I think that we, unfortunately, so far it hasn't been gone as smooth as we expect. So Europe has a very ambitious target to reach domestically to produce 10 million tons of hydrogen by 2030. And today, we produce around 0.04 million tons. And to bridge this gap, to go from 0.04 to 10 million tons, we estimate that there's going to be around 100 gigawatt of electrolyzer that has to be invested or built. And when you compare that amount to how much the projects we have currently, it is a huge gap. So currently there's only 3 gigawatt of electrolyzers under construction, and around 23 gigawatt of projects are at a more advanced planning stage. So it is, some gap until 100. And on top of that, last year we saw a lot of news coming from the hydrogen sector that are pretty daunting. There was a project between Norway and Germany about hydrogen pipeline. They said the project had to stop because of there's no demand and pretty expensive cost. And the same goes for another project for e-fuels for aviation that was also canceled. And some electrolyzer manufacturers also stopped their expansion. And all of them cited like very high cost and no demand for green hydrogen. So it feels like the green hydrogen momentum is fading. And this kind of to just stress this point. Many European industrial players, they are not doing very well since around COVID time. Here we see the production from German industry. It has declined since 2021. And the declining industry, that means they don't have extra money for investing in new process. And at the same time, we see that cost for electrolyzer, or not just electrolyzer, but also pipelines and they are expensive. The chart to the right shows actually just an update from 3 different sources about their cost expectation for electrolyzer. When they updated the cost like 2 or 3 years after the first edition, they all modified it upwards. So the actual cost for electrolyzer is not as, or it's even more expensive than we first thought. So the hydrogen sector is having a chicken and egg problem. The industry doesn't have enough of, or doesn't have big willingness to invest in new processes, and the green hydrogen stays expensive, and it's expensive, so there's no demand. And mixing hydrogen has a big impact to the power sector. Here we did another set of simulations, compare the market value of renewables with and without electrolyzers. So electrolyzers, they provide, first of all, demand, because they use electricity to produce. So without electrolyzer, the demand is lower. Then we see a drop of power price without electrolyzer. But for renewables, hydrogen or electrolyzer bring another value, that is flexibility. So without flexibility from electrolyzers, the market value of renewables drop even further. For this example, we see that the market value for renewables can drop down by 20 to even a third. So uncertainties around hydrogen is expanding to the power sector. And without demand for green hydrogen, the investments for renewable is much less attractive. And for my last point, I would like to just briefly talk about transmissions. So here I'm going back to the example in Norway. The Norwegian TSO has estimated the demand by 2035 will increase more than 30%. And this is driven by electrification of the industry, and also transportation sector, and new demands such as hydrogen or data center. And if we count all the measures for emission reduction, all the climate measures, this demand would be even more. And more demand is actually good for renewable investment. But the thing is, this demand will not happen if we don't upgrade our grid. Here I'm showing an example of data center projects. So with the hype of AI, there is a lot of demand for building data centers. And in Europe, Nordic is the area where the power price is relatively cheap. So they look into a lot of them look into the Nordic countries. For Norway, unfortunately, more than half of these projects, these data center projects, they're actually ready to be connected, but there is no space in the grid, so they have to stay in the queue. And when we look at the map of Norway, it is a very long country, and most part of it doesn't have any space in their grid, so it's not possible to connect this new demand, especially in the north, where that's where the power price is the lowest. So unfortunately, if there's no grid, none of this would happen. And I'm coming to my final slide. So I've mentioned a lot of a bit like daunting or sounds quite bad challenges. Yeah, but remember that Europe has made a great progress for decarbonization. And my point for today is that with going forward to the energy transition, we will see these challenges happening. And if we are able to anticipate, or if we expect that this will happen, then we can start preparing for them today. And the challenges, just to repeat, that today I talk about for onshore wind and solar PV, they meet a lot of social opposition, so it's gonna switch to a more expensive solution. And at the same time, it's profitability is being cannibalized. And battery might be able to help, especially solar, to maintain its market value. But the same story for battery. The more battery it is, the less revenue it will have. And hydrogen seeming to be the solution for many of the things, but the reality is it hasn't realized yet. There is no green hydrogen demand, and it is expensive. And the last point is that grid is the most, or it's one of the most important thing in this whole energy transition topic. Without an upgraded grid, none of this would happen. So yeah, I hope people can still stay optimistic, even though I just talked about all of these challenges. Yeah, and I will be available to talk if you're interested in some of this topic. And I would like to thank you again for your attention.